This has been the most requested video on this channel since we started. I get emails every day. What kind of camera gear do you use? What do you use for editing? What about the GoPros? What about the drone? Where's the drone? I need the drone. And not just from people that have a vlog or a YouTube channel, but people who are interested in documenting their journey and capturing their memories. So in this video, we're gonna break down all this equipment, everything that we use, starting with the least expensive camera, like the Session GoPro, all the way to the new Canon 6D Mark II that I'm talking to right now. By the way, this video is going in our new YouTube course, How to Start a YouTube Channel, where we share everything that we learned going from zero knowledge on cameras and editing to now reaching over 800,000 people per month. So if you've been considering starting a YouTube channel, or maybe you already have a YouTube channel and you're looking for even more views, or maybe you're just looking to take even better video and documenting your memories, go to howtostartayoutubechannel.com and get started. So this is going to be a monster video. And the reason is, I'm not gonna say, okay, well, this is my GoPro 5 and I like it, it's good. I'm gonna be getting into the details of what's the good and the bad and the ugly of this Canon T5i, what about the GoPro Session compared to the Hero, how to stay organized, why I use these external hard drives, how I upload videos on the Verizon network, accessories like this MonoPod, and how about this new El Grande pole, which I use to go skiing in Breckenridge. So, to make it easier for you to navigate and watch this video, in the description below there's going to be time markers so that you can jump right to the section that you want. And there's going to be a corresponding blog at keepyourdaydream.com/camera gear. And on that blog will be all the links to this stuff and even more information. So definitely go check that out. All right. I think that's everything. Let's just jump right in. Woo! It's gonna get hot in here because the first thing I learned when we started doing this is that when your air conditioning is on, your footage gets ruined with bad audio. There's really nothing more frustrating than having a fantastic clip and then finding out that there's a hum in the background. There is a way to get rid of noise in footage, but when you're doing a video every single Sunday, that takes time. And part of this effort is to stay ready and get the right footage the first time so that you don't have to do all of that effort. All right, I said I would jump in with the least expensive, and I believe that is the GoPro Session 5 right here. Actually, no, the GoPro Session 4, which is right here. This little bad boy right now will run you about $150 or less. It shoots in 1080, it records in 60 frames per second at 1080, and the audio is actually pretty good. You can tell me how you think the audio is and what do you think the quality of the resolution is. Now this camera is 2 years old and it has been through a lot of abuse. And the other nice thing about it is it's a lithium battery. So it's gonna last most of the day. Our entire first season, I would say 63.5% of the footage from season 1 was captured on this camera right here. Mainly because I didn't really know much about how to work that Canon and it was kind of big and bulky, and this was just a really easy way and the footage was good. So the Session is a good place to start, but let me tell you the downsides. One is there's no LCD screen on it, so you're not going to be able to see yourself in the frame. It's not going to take too long to figure out if you're in the frame or not, but there's a little bit of a learning curve. Another downside is that because it has that lithium battery, it doesn't have a removable battery like this Hero 5. Whereas this, I have 2 different batteries and I can remove them. So that's pretty nice. And the GoPro 4 Session does not have built-in stabilization or time-lapse mode. So now, let's pop up to the Session 5. The Session 5, in my opinion, is the best GoPro on the market, bar none. Far better than this Hero. Why? It shoots in 4K, it shoots in 2.7, and it shoots in 1080. It shoots in 240 frames per second in certain resolutions, but I mostly record at 1080 at 60 frames per second, and I'll tell you why in just a second. The audio on this camera has a mic in the front and a mic in the back, and it has built-in stabilization. And this is what the GoPro 5 Session sounds like and looks like. So I think it looks all right. You can tell me, you can be the judge. I think this audio is acceptable. The beautiful thing about this particular camera is you don't have to worry about a case. You can go underwater, above water, and you can just clean off the lens, no problems. It's simple and it's cheap. Now, you see that little screen right there? You pop out of the water and you wipe it off and you're good to go. The GoPro Hero, which is far more expensive, notice that my lens cover is off. The reason that that's off is because there's dust and glare that will get in underneath there. When you take this camera underwater and you come up, the lens gets fogged. The lens gets fogged, making this camera almost worthless. Plus, The audio on the Hero is just miserable. But don't take my word for it. This is it to hear for yourself. Now, you're probably thinking, that's not that bad, and you're right. The issue with the GoPro Hero audio is the way that it's constructed inside the device. Somehow, it's very susceptible to noise when you actually touch the device or things brush it. So Trish and I have been in Tulum, Mexico. We were out for a hike and I was holding the camera walking like this. Some palm trees kind of brush over the top of the device.
I've experienced this like 10 times if I'm keeping up with you. And I know you're running.
It just makes these really loud noises. So it's very susceptible to like banging and movement. But if you can avoid all the movement, it's not too bad. Now, when you take the little door off the side to insert it into the Karma grip, that little door changes everything. Then the audio does get really bad. And here's the GoPro 5 Hero in the Karma grip, and I think you can tell the difference in the audio. Not terrible if this is your only option, but it's certainly not the level it could be. Now, let's talk about the stabilization of this GoPro Karma grip. Unbelievable. You can pretty much run and get stable footage with this camera. I was actually surprised how good the audio was when we were skiing in Breckenridge when I had it on this pole. I moved the audio to wind, which I believe activates the front mic and not the back mic, and the audio was actually pretty good.
Can't hear the ski lift. The snow's the best, and these cliffs make you just a little bit scary. Woo! Oh!
I was impressed with it on that, but we'll get more details here and we'll stay on the GoPro 5. So, for an all-around good action cam that's completely waterproof with decent audio, good frame rates, high resolution, this is the way to go. Now, what's the drawback to action cams? Well, the main drawback is that you don't have depth of field, and we're going to talk about that. And that's why a lot of YouTubers and a lot of people who make video use a DSLR, because you're going to get that depth of field, which means that you can focus on one point and get that nice blurry background, and that's going to make it look a little bit more cinematic. And there's just more things that you can do in terms of lighting. With this, what you see is what you get. Everything has the same exposure, but this camera is exceptional for dash cam, which is why I have this guy right here. This is a suction cup which goes on the windshield. So let's go jump in the car and I'll show you how this works. So if you want to record footage on the road or in your car, either talking or looking out the windshield, the best way I've found to do this is with this GoPro suction cup mount right here. It mounts onto the front windshield. There's a couple different attachments so you can get it exactly in the right spot, but the cool thing about these GoPro Sessions, this is the 4, that's the 5, is that you can just unsnap, pull it out, flip it around, put it back in, and clip it. And now we're looking at the passenger and the driver. And if you record in higher frame rates like 1080, 2.7, or 4K, you can actually zoom in on whomever's talking in the car. So it's super simple to just unclip and face forward. The other thing I like about this is it has the button on the bottom or at top, so I can put the button facing down like this, and it will record it right side up. So I can just take that footage right in and do editing. So this has been a really handy little tool. The other thing is I can get amazing time-lapse footage by just holding this down for 2 seconds. This is only available on the GoPro 5. It goes into time-lapse mode. I can put it up on the front and you just get smooth time-lapse. The GoPro 5 has built-in stabilization. The GoPro Session 4 does not. Okay, so that's the deal about that. By the way, you cannot run over a Session in a 3/4 ton diesel truck.
Stop. What are the chances?
Or that's what it looks like right there. Okay, so that's about the GoPro Session. Now let's talk about the Hero, and then I want to talk about some GoPro accessories. The nice thing about the Hero is you're gonna have massive resolution and you're gonna have high frame rates. Now, why are high frame rates important? If you've seen buttery, smooth, slow-mo, it's because it's shot in a higher frame rate. Most cameras are gonna shoot in 30 frames, 24, 30 frames per second. But when you move up to 60 frames per second or higher, then in editing, you can add the additional frame rates and slow that footage down, and you're gonna get those frames in between. So 60 frames per second, which is what I record almost everything in, because I don't know what I'm gonna slow-mo and what I'm not gonna slow-mo. And there's also some tips in there about how to stabilize your footage. When you have footage that's just a little unstable, you can slow-mo it and it just smooths it out a little bit. So there's a little trick, and that's one of the reasons I record 60 frames per second. So with the GoPro 5, the big advantages to this camera is the removable battery. So not only is the battery removable, but I've got this little device here where I can charge 2 of them at a time. That's huge. And the other advantage is that it has the LCD screen in the back, so you can get a really good sense of what it is that you're shooting. So those are the two advantages. The big disadvantages is that this lens is exposed, even with that cap off, which I don't even know where it is because it's worthless. But with that cap off, you're scratching the lens, which I think I have a couple nicks there, but you can't really tell. And the audio is just not that good. But despite the challenges of this camera, I still have it. Why? Mainly because of this Karma grip right here. Ah, look at that. Okay. So the GoPro 5 with the Hero grip is really good. I must say, it's really good. Why do I have a camera that has such bad audio? Because I use this for B-roll. If we're gonna go hiking or we're gonna be driving in the passenger seat and I want sweeping footage of the road on a bumpy road, like if we're on a bus and I want good footage. This is fairly small and it's generally not waterproof, but it's water resistant, and it's just easy to hold. So like when we were hiking the Manitou in Colorado, this is a great camera for that. Overall, if I was looking to save money and I wanted to get a GoPro, it'd be the Session 5 all day long. Now let's talk about other accessories about your GoPros too. This little guy right here has been fantastic because now you can get footage of yourself as you're walking through a museum, or if you're walking through somewhere where you want to be like pointing and looking around, you want the footage going back. I think we've covered GoPro and why I like GoPro and what some of the downsides are. And by the way, there's downsides to everything. Okay, I think it's time for a little break. If you're new to video and you haven't bought your first camera yet, all this information can seem so overwhelming. Talking about resolution and frame rates. This is the first camera we started with on season 1. No idea what ISO and aperture and all this stuff is with this camera. I learned one video at a time. I had no idea what the camera is capable of. I had no idea about frame rates. We just started, and that would be my suggestion to you. If you're just getting into video, just start with whatever you have. And you'll start to learn one video at a time. Don't buy more than you're willing to spend in the beginning, because once you understand the type of footage that you're interested in taking, how you like to edit, and the type of videos you make, then you can buy more appropriate gear. So with that being said, enjoy the video, but don't get overwhelmed. All of this will come in time. All right, let's move up to the next level camera, which would probably be this Canon T5i, which, by the way, this Canon right here is my first DSLR. The T7i wasn't out yet when I started this a couple years ago, but that would probably be the camera that I would start with today. And the reason that I like this camera is it's got fantastic color. It records in 1080. It records at 60 frames per second at 720, and it has a fully articulating screen so that I can angle the screen like this and I can get smooth footage like that and looking down. It's got the mic input for the Rode mic. I'm going to talk a little bit about mics next. And the lens has stabilization and autofocus. If Canon's known for anything, it's known for its color and it's known for its autofocus. So a small confession, everything that you've seen on Keep Your Daydream was recorded with this camera at 60 frames per second, which means that it was 720. 720. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with resolutions, it would go 720, 1080, 4K. And all the rage is 4K. And yet the recurring comment on our channel is how clear everything is. How clear it is with 720.
Out beneath the thunder, this is what he said, and this is what she said. But our love won't survive on the words of others. So I wanna hear you with your own lips. Say, come on, come and near me more.
And it's due to those comments why I favor autofocus and color over resolutions. So this Canon has been a great place for me to start and a great introductory to learn about DSLRs, but let me tell you some of the deficiencies to this camera, particularly as a travel vlogger. The on and off switch is right here. The mode selection is right here. So if it's winter time and you have a glove on and you go turn your camera on, you can see that I just moved it from autofocus into program. The big downside to that is that there are audio settings on this camera for autofocus and there are audio settings for this camera on manual, and unfortunately they're different. So when I go out of one mode and into another, it changes the volume of the mic. I have had to do a significant amount of post-production audio work in order to adjust the audio down or up because of that little mistake. Not to mention that you're just gonna get the different type of exposure when you're changing modes. So the fact there's no lock on this, like there is on the 6D, is a huge frustration. Okay, now let's talk about the accessories that go with some of these DSLRs, starting with my new favorite accessory, this monopod right here. You'll see a lot of vloggers use this GorillaPod, and it's what I used for the first 3 seasons and everything was fine, because you can kind of angle it toward yourself and you can flip the screen back and you can hold it out like this. I very rarely set it up like this to get a shot, and I very rarely wrap it around a tree. This is a bit overrated in my opinion. This, on the other hand, nice, soft, cushy handle like this, it's just easier to hold out like this. And if we're gonna be talking for a long time, I'll drop these things down, starting with the lower one, and then starting with the second one, and then this top one, I'll find the right setting, clip it in place, flip the screen, obviously not with a telescopic lens, and now I'm just holding the camera still. The other thing that this monopod is really handy is I can flip the screen like this, I can set it on the ground, and particularly with a telescopic, I can just slowly pan the camera to get the right shot. All right, so let's talk about the lenses. This is the standard 18-55 lens that it came with, and this is the 55 to 250 lens that I bought midway through season 3. This lens right here was a game changer for our channel, and the reason why is for a travel vlog where you're getting footage from far away, this gave me that depth of field, those blurry backgrounds that I needed so that I could focus on one point and then hold the camera steady and slowly move. A telescopic lens is going to make a big difference. There's a series of checks that I do on this camera. So I had this lens and we were shooting an event at NASCAR. I did not realize it, but the stabilization was off on the lens. I didn't know it until the event was over and I was editing the footage and I was wondering why everything was so shaky. So, to avoid that now, every time I turn on the camera, I check 4 things. I look at stabilization, autofocus, I check the mode that I want to be in. Do I want to be in auto or do I want to be in a manual mode? And I check to make sure the mic is on and it's at 0 dB. That's kind of a pain, but I do it every time. And the reason is, if one of those things is off, I could end up having a problem. Either I'm going to have blurry footage, which I know you've seen, or the exposure is going to be way off. So it's to the point now where the camera goes on, check, 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 and then I hit record. Okay, so now let's talk about other accessories to DSLRs. You'll notice that I've got 3 Canon batteries with dates on the battery. It goes back to being prepared. The reason for the dates is you only get about a year out of each battery before you put it on, you'll start getting issues with batteries. So by adding a date to the battery, you'll know which one you need to throw away and which ones to replace. Not only do I have 3 batteries, but I've got 2 chargers, one to keep in the car or my camera bag and one to keep with us with all my camera gear. So this has helped me stay prepared. And gosh, if there's one message to get out of this video, it's how do you stay organized to be prepared to get your shot? That is the takeaway. It doesn't matter about your camera gear and it doesn't matter about your skill, it matters about your preparation. The best camera in the world, held by the best videographer in the world with a dead battery, isn't that great? One last thing about the Canon T5i, this is considered a crop sensor, which means that the sensor is not a full sensor, it's cropped in, and it doesn't let as much light into this camera as the camera I'm talking to right now, so it's not as good in low light conditions. And you'll notice that we don't have a lot of footage at nighttime because I don't have equipment to get good nighttime footage. The camera I'm talking to now, the 60 Mark II, is a full sensor camera and it lets in a lot more light, so you can expect to see more things happening in the evening. Speaking of sensors, it's a good idea to have a sensor cleaning kit with you at all times. We were in Mexico, we were out with the alley cat, we were on their catamaran, and the whales came up to go visit the boat. And I had this unbelievable shot of a mama whale with her baby calf whale coming out of the water and back down into the water, only to find out in editing that I had a big black spot on the lens.
Oh my God.
I had to figure out in Mexico how to clean my sensor, and that's probably something you want to figure out how to do in advance. All right, so let's move to the next camera in order of cost, and it would be this iPhone 10. So this is a fantastic camera, and there's pluses and some minuses to it. If you're just getting started with doing video and you have a phone, have at it, because phones take incredible footage. The only downside to using a phone for video is that the built-in stabilization is not very good. The quality of the camera with these phones and the audio I think is fantastic, but it's hard to hold them in such a way to not just get that little tiny vibration shake, which can become a little frustrating to the viewer. So if you get a gimbal, it takes care of that. The other thing you might want to do is to put a little dot where the lens is so that you know where to look. There's a big difference between talking to you right now when I'm looking at the red record button versus looking at you right now because I'm looking at the lens. I mean, what makes these cameras so great is now it actually has the depth of field functions where it focuses on one point and blurs out the background. It's amazing. Now, let me switch cameras and let me put the T5i and this Rode mic on the tripod, and let me switch it up. And not only are you gonna see the difference between the Canon 6D Mark II compared to the Canon 5D, but you're also gonna hear the difference in the audio between these two Rode mics. And then we're gonna talk about audio next. All right, so now I'm talking to the Canon Rebel T5i with the Rode mic, this Rode mic as a matter of fact, and I think you could probably tell the difference right off the bat. The audio's good, but probably not quite as clear as this guy. And there's probably a little bit of difference in the lighting and the crispness of the image, but probably not crazy. So let's talk about this camera and why I got it, because this was not an inexpensive camera by any means. And there's, within the community, a lot of people are talking about a lot of drawbacks within the 6D Mark II, and I'm going to tell you my take on this camera. First, let's start with some of the features of this camera. The basic features are, and I think why it's so popular within the video creating vlogging community, is because it has a fully articulating lens like this. And this particular camera has a full sensor. In fact, I think right now it's the only camera on the market that has a full sensor with an articulating screen. The camera itself is actually not that big, but this lens is more than half the weight of the camera, this lens. It's a full sensor camera, so it goes from 24 to 105. It's kind of the cross between a telescopic and a close-up, where I can get really close to my face, but I can still zoom in. So although it's heavy, man, I really like having flexibility for a vlog to be able to have almost a one-size-fits-all lens. But now let's talk about the practical aspects of this camera and why I got it. You'll notice right here that the mode button is locked. You have to push in order to change the mode. That right there is going to protect me from ruining footage when I'm out in the field and I don't know. It's got a really good feel to the camera in terms of how to hold it and how to use it, which is great for when you're trying to get stabilized footage, that you can hold it in such a way that you can get stable footage, and I really like that. But the thing I like the most, and the reason I went to this camera, is because I really think Canon does a great job with its color, and this camera is fantastic for autofocus. From all the comments that we've been getting over the past couple years, people are going to comment on the color and they're going to comment on focus. Not once, not one time has someone said, can you post in higher resolution? But all the time, if our focus isn't right, we're going to hear about that immediately. If our color isn't right, we're going to hear about that immediately. I am completely happy with 1080, and I am thrilled with this camera so far and some of the footage I'm getting with this camera. Okay, a complete review of this camera after I get more experience with it is on its way, but you'll probably have to let me know if that's something you're interested in. And I would say now, let's flip it back up because I want to talk about these mics. Wait, hold on, there's one more camera that I almost forgot. It's Caleb's camera for his vlog. It is a Canon EOS M100. I must say, I am incredibly impressed with Caleb's camera. It is a Canon EOS M100, and I'm so impressed in its ability to capture low light, its built-in audio with 2 mics, and a screen that flips up all around on the top, that I'm actually like pretty jealous now. I think I need one. There are situations when you're in a vlog or doing travel videos or any type of video that you just don't want to bring in a big DSLR and a big fuzzy mic. And this Canon M100 is small, but yet it still has an actual lens so that you can get that depth of field and you can focus in on a certain point and get that blurry background. In fact, I even used it when we were in Austin for some nighttime footage.
It's not bad.
Yeah. And the clarity, when he shows me, I'm like,
That's insane.
Okay, we're back, and I did my check. I checked the stabilization, I checked the autofocus, I checked what mode we're in, and I checked the audio, as I do every time I turn on a camera, and I suggest that you do also. I also turned back on the TV so that if you have ADD, you're well entertained. And now, what are we gonna talk about? It's funny, make a joke about ADD and then lose my train of thought. Mics, that's right. So let's talk about these Rode mics. You have a lot of options when it comes to Rode mics. They make mics for like $87 all the way up to $300, which is the mic that I'm talking to right now. And so you're probably wondering, what's the difference? Can I just go get the $80 mic? And the answer is yes. If you're just starting out, start where you can and work your way up. You'll end up getting better equipment and you'll know exactly what you want if you take that approach, rather than just starting high and not exactly know why you're buying expensive equipment. The $80 mic that you'll see from Rode is a good mic, and it's gonna be far better audio than the default mic within your DSLR. There are a couple drawbacks to this mic. One is that it hangs off the back of the camera. So if you wanna use your camera for photography, the mic is gonna hit you in the forehead, you're not gonna be able to use it. The second drawback is that the mic does not have a battery built into the mic, so it's going to drain the battery of the camera a little bit faster by providing power, and it's not gonna have the amplification to the mic to get the clear audio that you might be hearing right now. A good place to start, but if you want to spend a little bit more money, you can pop up to this Rode mic right here, which isn't really that big. It has a built-in battery, which makes it nice, and the sound is fantastic. So I've been using this for almost 2 years now, and the audio has been pretty good. But there are a couple drawbacks. One of the drawbacks is that I have to remember to turn it on, and there has been more than one occasion where I have not remembered to turn on the mic. Now it's part of my routine, but I've still lost a lot of great footage. The second drawback is, although this feature is really nice to be able to control the dB, so you can go -10, 0, +20, the fact is, more times than not, I'm on 0. And when it gets moved to 20, I end up having audio that's way too loud, and when it's on 10, I end up having footage that's way too low. So although this is nice to have, it actually becomes more of a nuisance for me. The third thing is that it takes this battery, and if you leave your mic on and forget to turn it off, this is gonna become drained, which is why I always carry a spare battery in my camera bag. And the last drawback, and I know I've given you more drawbacks than pluses, the last drawback is that these little rubber bands that it comes with like this, they end up coming off. So I finally resorted into my own rubber bands, so I had to stop messing around with these things. So now let's switch mics, and let me tell you a little bit about the new mic, which is a Rode Pro Plus. Okay, so now the audio is from the mic, the Rode Pro mic that we just reviewed, and so you can tell right away the difference between each of those mics. And real quick, let me just show you what it sounds like when I move it to 20 dB. Now you're listening to it in the 20 dB mode, which, by the way, I noticed that it picks up ambient noises much better. So when I'm outside and we're walking, it picks up the gravel on the ground and it amplifies the audio almost too much, in my opinion. It kind of makes a difficult time editing. Now you're hearing it in -10 dB, which is way too low for doing a video like this, but might be good if I was gonna do like at NASCAR and it's a really loud environment. Personally, I think it's too much hassle to be changing around. I like simple things. I want to go to the same thing, the same setting every single time, so I know what I'm dealing with. Okay, back to 0, and let's talk about this mic right here, which, first off, right off the bat, it is much bigger mic, which the whole setup is bigger. The 6D is bigger, the lens is bigger, the mic is bigger, it's a lot heavier, it's a lot more invasive, but the quality is noticeable. So reason I went up to this mic is you can see no more rubber bands, but it still has the shock-proof ability, which means the mic can move on almost like a gimbal. Accessing the battery is much easier, and it's a lithium battery where I can charge by plugging into a micro USB right here. But the thing that makes it even better is when this battery dies, it still takes 2 AA batteries. So if you can't charge your lithium battery, or if you're out hiking or whatnot, you can still bring AA. Rode, you're a genius. But the single biggest reason why I moved to this mic is because it now automatically turns on and off with the camera. I don't know how it does it. When I want to change to plus dB or -10 dB, I can push the button and a light is illuminated as to which setting it's in. So I can clearly see. On the previous Rode mic, I'd look down and I would wonder, is it 0 or is it actually 20 dB and it's over, and I really couldn't tell. And the quality and the sound of this mic is just fantastic. There is a drawback though. That is that this cord right here protrudes out the back. I now can't take an actual photo. What I have to do is unplug it like this, and then I can take a photo. It still hits, but it's doable. Okay, are we ready to talk about the drone? A drone requires its own video to itself, but there's just a few things I wanted to share with you, like what drone we've been using, what drone I'm looking at buying, and a couple tips to help you get started. This is the DJI Phantom 3 Pro. This drone has served me well on our channel. It has captured some stunning footage like the beaches in Mexico or the whales that we captured, and in California, the Bigsby Bridge, and even going up the coast of California, or even bungee jumping in Whistler. The second tip is to use your drone as a camera and not a toy. If it's a camera, you're going to know the shot you're looking for before you take off, and once you get the shot, bring it home. Anything beyond that is just a liability. The other mistakes that I've seen new drone pilots make is that they get a little too clever when they're starting out, and they do multiple movements or they're really low to the ground. The best shots are going to establish the location, they're going to be high, and they're going to be simple movements. So don't overcomplicate things when you get started. In terms of our next drone, I'm looking at either the Mavic or the Air, both by DJI. And the reason is this drone is wonderful, but it's a little too bulky in a backpack, and I have to put on the propellers every single time, and there's just a little too many steps for me to quickly get the footage that I'd like. So you can expect a more in-depth video about drones, but that's the 411 for now. Wow, we have covered so much information, but I want to leave you with this final thought. No one should feel overwhelmed or feel like you shouldn't start a channel or get started with videos because you can't afford the fancy equipment. Whatever camera gear you have right now, get started. Instead of focusing on what you don't have, focus on your story and focus on making a connection with your audience and who that audience is and developing a community. All of that is a learned skill. We grew our channel without knowing anything about cameras, anything about editing, and we learned one video at a time, and so can you. So if you feel compelled to share your story, it could be one of the most rewarding things you've done. And if that's the case, let me be your guide. Pop on over to howtostartayoutubechannel.com and see if it's right for you. And also remember that there's more information on the links that everything we talked about at keepyourdaydream.com/camera gear. If you like this video, let me know in the comments, and if you'd like us to share more information about how we make our videos, let me know that too. If you're new here, we release a new video every Sunday at 6 p.m. So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and we will catch you this weekend.